You're listening to No Plot, Only Lore, a podcast about games and the tables we play them at. Your DMs tonight and every night are Josh and Chris. You can find us on all podcast platforms or check us out at noplotonlylore.com. If you like what you hear today, please rate and review the show and share it with everyone you've ever met. And we're back for another week of Dungeons and Dragons Drivel. I am your host, Josh. Chris is with me as usual. We almost ran out of ideas, and then I had a weekend, and suddenly many more ideas came flooding in after I ran a one-shot for the first time in a while. One-shots aren't something that I've made a habit of doing, but I had a couple of people who were interested in trying the game out for the first time. They were recommended by, actually, my friend who normally DMs. He, doesn't want to be a forever DM, and suggested that maybe I could run some people through something. So I grabbed him, I grabbed another friend, a couple friends of ours, and two brand new players, and we ran a fairly straightforward little introductory level 3 one-shot. Had a great time. Yeah.
Are we sure that Keith didn't want you to DM just to get back at you for dragging him through the first 3 episodes of this fucking podcast?
Yeah. This is all just time for him to roast my DM skills. No, we had a great time. I feel like there's a chance that at least one of these people will be interested in becoming a regular player. Where we find them, I don't know. We have no plans for the future, but everyone was able to have a good self-contained afternoon of Dungeons and or Dragons. And I feel like they got the authentic experience. I was a little bit worried when I was told that one of the new players had a lot of Critical Role experience.
Oh no.
Yeah.
It's been a while since we busted out the Matt Mercer effect.
Yeah,
we actually managed to avoid it for a few episodes, but for new players especially, it's definitely a thing.
Yeah, I was genuinely concerned, oh no, am I going to get compared to this professional? But luckily, I think she had a grain of salt implanted pretty early on and was able to participate in a way that was, authentic and genuine despite her lack of experience. She already had developed interesting little tics for the kind of character she wanted to play, and really was able to open up with a little bit of role-playing in the first session, which is great. The other guy's a little more reserved. He's never touched on this before, but I could tell he was enjoying himself and found the experience interesting. I think part of the problem is that, he didn't really have any experience with character creation in this way, and so hadn't really had any time to think about who or what his character was. We started with a really rough draft after a conversation of what he wanted to play, and I just said, look, you don't know anything about anything when it comes to this. I will just kind of cobble together a usable character for tonight, and then if we decide to do more in the future, we'll work together on something collaborative that you can embody a little bit more. But it gave him something. Sorry, go ahead.
You're still in the D&D organized play scene, yeah?
No, not at all.
Oh, okay. Because I remember one of my favorite resources that came out of the 4th edition D&D organized play were those little character cards that started.
Yeah.
You just pass out to somebody that had some art attached to it and a couple of little role-playing notes, and those were just brilliant for new players because you passed them a card. You passed them a stack of cards, and they picked the one that looked the coolest.
Yeah. No, I haven't seen anything like that in years and years. We basically just sat on a Discord call, and I said, okay, you've played RPGs in general. What kind of characters do you normally play? And he said, archers. And I'm like, well, you're not starting with a ranger because I want you to have fun. But, eventually I sort of asked him what kind of things he liked and was inspired by. And he talked a lot about the outdoors and wilderness and things like that. And so I said, okay. And we talked about it and sort of came up with the idea of a warlock whose patron was initially he was oh, I'll have this. There was a like a Nordic god of mountains or whatever in the
All
player's handbook, and I'm like, that's cool. What if it was just the actual mountain, like a sentient mountain? So yeah, he's a god who's Feywild, or was it Fey? Yes, his Feywild.
Unless it was like a great old one that took the form of a mountain.
No, I looked at those things and said no, they're mechanically a little too weird. So I just gave him a Fey warlock whose patron was a literal mountain, and then I went with that. There's an alternative Pact of the Amulet or something like that. I forget the exact wording. It's one of the ones from I think Tasha's. Okay. But basically they just get a little like necklace that they can hang on to that will give them a boost to some sort of ability save that they make. Okay. So I just said you have a literal piece of a mountain, like a rock on your necklace, right? That ties you to your deity.
Just carrying a boulder around.
No, maybe not that big, but yeah, definitely a shard of a mountain.
That is absolutely the direction that I would go in it.
Yeah.
It's just like, I have a backpack full of one boulder.
A literal millstone around your neck?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would do that. What was that guy from like the Asterix and Obelix cartoons?
Oh!
Obelix, he's got that menhir that he's carrying
around. Yeah, just wanders around with it. Yeah. God, I love those comics. Anyways, so yeah, I was able to give him a quick rundown on like how to read your character sheet, what your character does, and the adventure that we went through was fairly straightforward.
They have to be.
Yeah. Like you set the hook. You have a little 4-room dungeon with one quote-unquote puzzle, and like I'm gonna call it like one combat essentially. Like they had a little thing where like some monster jumped out of a crack, and it's like 5v1. But then there's like one, there's like one real fight at the end that was interesting for them. And yeah, I think it went great. Like the power level was enough that they genuinely felt concerned a little bit. He was like a 6th level wizard of some sort, so dropped a big old like ice storm on top of the clumped up party that dropped the sorcerer temporarily. But yeah, there was tension, there was exploration, I think it worked out well. Like,
formatting wise,
yeah,
that's a really classical D&D style one shot where you do like some kobolds done stole our children and you need to go in and stab them until our children come back. Kind of campaign, but like what elements do you think are necessary for making a good one shot as compared to a mediocre or bad one?
Well, I think that really depends on the purpose of your one-shot. I mean, this one-shot was explicitly designed to introduce new players to the game. So I wanted to make sure to touch on all of the elements that make up what D&D is. So there's a little bit of role-playing. There's a little bit of, like, trap finding and exploration, a little bit of problem-solving, and then a twist and a dose of balanced combat that allowed everyone to use their skills.
So they all start in a tavern, and then the dungeon is to go and fight rats in the basement.
No, actually, mine was a little bit different. Okay. Because another important part that you need to include in a one-shot is a story. It's a short story, but it's a real story. So I used the hook of the one character, because I had the more experienced players kind of give me their backstories and stuff ahead of time, and I had conversed a little bit with one guy about what his because I decided for no reason whatsoever other than like I had the board game on my shelf to set this one in Waterdeep, and he was a druid, so he's like, well, why did a druid be in the middle of town? And what he came up with was that he and his business partner were essentially running like rich people Tupperware parties, but for like druidic potions and herbs and salves, with a little bit of like Mary Kay on the side. And then that with his partner was a cover for them to case the joint, and then later sneak in using wild shape and steal expensive things that they would then sell and donate the money to the poor. So, a little Robin Hood-y flavor to it. And so I use the idea of his partner as a hook to say, hey, you got a message from your partner who says, I may have found a job for us that's going to require a few extra people, but it could be like the biggest score we've ever had. I'll set up a meeting. And then this guy meets them in the tavern, says, hey, look, I'm a collector of like rare artifacts, and I've gotten word that there's a rare artifact in this basement of this like boarded up house, but like it used to belong to some unsavory people. So like, if you guys could help me out, like I'll go with you, but I might need some protection or whatever. Right. And so
go stab rats.
So they go and they explore what is mostly an empty basement with a really simple 3-color lock puzzle. And by puzzle, I mean, I put one key in a trap chest, one key in a crack in the wall that had a gray ooze on top of it, and one key in the skull of a skeleton in a corner. Right? And so they find these 3, they open the door, and they go into the last room, and it's row upon row of shelving filled with a variety of skulls. And skulls of...
Nothing creepy about that at all?
No. It's skulls of like every shape and size, except for 2 of the party members. There's no skulls that match their race. And then suddenly the door closes with a gentle thud behind them, and this collector, locks the door and reveals himself to be the like lich that's been collecting skulls in the basement or whatever.
Oh, see, I was expecting it to be the druid. The druid is collecting like various types of creature for their own purposes, whatever those happen to be. Some sort of evil druid nonsense.
No, so we went with he turns on the party, summons some skeletons and zombies and starts fighting them, and then things don't go well, and he dimension doors away into a locked room that suddenly then the door bursts open and out comes a ghast that he had kept hidden in there. So like things got dicey for a bit, but they overcame it. So initially he tells them that they are searching for this like crystalline crimson statuette of a sea creature. And then you finish the fight, he's down, they see the pedestal in this locked room. So this room that he dimension doored into is full of wealth. There's a pedestal in the middle that has a small statuette on it, and when they pass their really low DC investigation check, they recognize it to be a red herring.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and let me tell you, delivering the punchline to a dad joke you've been setting up for 4 hours is a satisfaction that I've never known before. The
stone itself was red?
No, it's an actual red crystal fish statue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. I wanted to make sure that the color of the statue was like properly red.
Yeah, it was a ruby fish.
Good.
And then for whatever reason, the other druid was like, I don't know, remembered that I had mentioned his friend was involved somehow. He's like, wait, so like, do I? Well, and I was just like, okay, make me an investigation check. And I was like, oh, inside the satchel of this necromancer, you find a freshly cleaned skull, and you recognize the scent. Ha 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 ha. End of story.
Oh no.
Yeah.
All right, so
I wasn't even going to kill that character, and then
he decided to push it. Sense.
But then someone said, "I bet you he's going to rescue us with Deus Ex Machina." And I'm like, "Well,
time for that guy to go away forever."
Yeah, exactly.
I think like a really compact story like that is super, super important for one shots.
Yeah,
for a long campaign. I kind of look at the creation of long campaigns and one shots in the same way that I do like short stories and novels.
Yeah.
Right. So like for a novel and for a long campaign, you need to have a few interacting ideas.
Yep.
Right? Like it's not something that you can do with just like one really solid idea. And I think that a lot of beginning DMs, and I'm including myself in this, get that one big idea that they think they're going to wrap their entire campaign around. And the campaign lasts 3 sessions because there really isn't a lot of exploration that you can do on that one single idea.
Right, right.
And then the other thing that I see a lot of people do, and again, myself included early on, is you have an idea for a one shot, but you start to complicate it. Right? You start to build out so much extra stuff that's going on, and to the point that like you're exploring 2 or 3 different plot lines, 2 or 3 different like story threads that you've put into this, and you haven't actually gotten anything done by the end of your 4-hour session.
Yep.
Right. So no, I think that like the linearity of the story that you were telling had a very clear like beginning, middle, and end.
Yep.
And one solid idea that you were running through for that, which is Lich collecting skulls. What do?
Yeah, exactly. It's a little more interesting than go step on rats for 2 hours, but it's not substantially more complicated when it comes to the story idea.
See, but there is something to be said for the go step on rats idea, right? Like the concept of go step on rats is a classic for a reason.
Yeah.
And it's because the
DMs are
basics, lazy. DMs are lazy, DMs are uncreative, or DMs look at like go step on rats and want to do something interesting with it.
Sure, yeah.
Right. So like there are twists that you can do for go step on rats that make that into an interesting one shot. Who is controlling the rats? Are the rats controlled? Is there something beneath the rats that is making that more terrifying? That's why all the rats are suddenly in this basement.
Sure.
Like you have plot ideas that can come from like go step on rats for a while. But like you don't necessarily need to have something that simple.
Okay.
I guess. Just one solid idea, whatever that solid idea is going to be. So for like the go step on rats thing, your solid idea is almost always going to be the twist, right? The thing that is going to take go step on rats and turn it into that's going to elevate it. It's going to make it something bigger than it is. But like Lich collecting skulls for whatever like weird fetish they have, it's again like one simple solid idea that you can execute over the course of a few hours, as long as you don't get it like too complicated. Like going to find his phylactery is going to be a whole different problem.
Right.
And like you could potentially build a campaign out of that, assuming that you had other ideas to run with.
Well, I mean, yeah, like right now, the way it ended, it could be, okay, so obviously the druid is distraught about the death of his friend and knows that he needs to go find this Lich's phylactery, and maybe in his studies or books or whatever, he might find a way to, revivify his friend or something.
Right. Well, my current campaign actually started off with a session that could have fairly easily been a one-shot.
Yeah.
And the idea was that our heroes had been hired to steal some information.
Okay.
And it was information about an artifact that had been recently discovered, and they had to break into a university, retrieve the information without actually taking anything.
Okay.
So the twist on the heist is that the only thing we're stealing is knowledge.
Okay.
And then get the fuck out.
Yeah.
And that could have very easily been a one-shot, and it's turned into a 6+ session campaign now.
Okay.
Mostly because my players fucked it up.
Sure.
They stole the book the information was contained in instead of the information itself. And so
that's
people
bad.
had a thing to look at and go, no, you stole my thing, instead of you have copied my information. It was an allegory for piracy.
Sure.
Yeah, for internet piracy. But yeah, like the building out of a campaign can be had from a one-shot. But again, you really want to have that like one solid idea that you can finish in the course of a few hours.
Yeah.
What are your favorite games to run for one-shots? I'm assuming Dungeons & Dragons and nothing else.
Not nothing else. It's just less these days. All of my Gamma World have been one shots,
Okay.
because there was so little published for it.
Yeah.
What else have I run one shots in? Does 2 different editions of Dungeons and Dragons count?
Sure. So fourth edition
We're
and
up
fifth
to
edition.
3 things.
Right.
What else? I think that's about it. Yeah.
Because for me,
that being
like-
said, I'm pretty good at adapting the editions of D&D that I'm running to serve different storytelling purposes than just what's in the original.
Right. See, for me, I love one shots to explore other games,
Okay.
especially like those smaller games that have a really cool initial premise, but you wouldn't
Yeah.
necessarily want to play over the course of years. Right.
Oh, you mean like the Al-Shaib Roach or whatever?
that basically has to be a one shot. You've got
Yeah.
nothing else you can do with the
Yeah.
Shabo Hiri Roach. You could maybe get 3 sessions out of it if everybody's like really invested in doing like some heavy role playing.
Yeah.
But like the concept itself, it's a one shot, right? Like somebody brings a roach home from Egypt. Somebody ate the roach and now they have superpowers. The roach wants
Yeah.
everyone to eat the roach to get superpowers. That is as simple as it comes as far as like role playing game plots are
Yeah.
concerned. If you try to drag that out over a like 15 session campaign, it is going to be terrible.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair.
But like smaller games, Witchcraft was one that I really liked. It was CJ Corella put
Okay.
together. He's the guy that wrote the Buffy the Vampire Slayer role playing.
Oh,
game.
yeah.
And Buffy the Vampire Slayer is based on Witchcraft. And
Okay.
It's a really fun system. It's very 1990s in its design, and so it's still suffering from some of the problems that we had from like copying stuff in the 1980s.
Sure.
Like it was a little more narrative driven. It was a little more like free flowing, and it made for a really good like monster of the week type game where you just have like one thing that you're dealing with, like one supernatural thing that you're dealing with, and all of these random people. You've got like John Constantine and those 3 girls from The Craft working
Oh,
together
sure,
to try
sure,
and figure
sure.
it out.
Yeah.
Right. Mouse Guard plays really good one-offs.
Yeah.
It's a little complicated for a one-shot. Like you're probably going to want to have your DM build the characters for
Yeah.
it. But like so much good role-playing stuff is already like baked into the system.
Okay.
You don't really need a ton of love on that. And then my favorites are actually like the one-page RPGs.
Okay.
So have you delved into one-page RPGs much?
I have delved into one-page wargaming.
Right, it's basically the same concept, except it's like a very small, rules-light role-playing game idea.
Okay.
So one that I want to play soon is called Honey Heist, and it's got some rave reviews. And it is about going on a standard Ocean's 11 style heist where you have a like crazy over-the-top plan that requires absolutely precise timing, and also all of your characters are fucking bears.
Sorry, what?
So like, yeah, no, you're just a bear. You actually have 2 stats. One of them is for stuff that isn't bear, and one of them is for stuff that's bear.
What is bear?
The animal.
Right, no. You're
And
saying
anything that you need to do that would be a bear thing. So like hitting things with your claws, that's bear.
Okay.
Climbing up a tree, that's bear.
Okay.
Trying to negotiate your way past some guards, not bear.
And you're... Okay. I don't see why a bear would be negotiating at all, but that's okay.
Because they have a plan, Josh.
Yeah.
And you have to stick
Clearly.
to the plan.
I don't know why they have a plan, but that's whatever.
How else are you going to get the honey?
Bear ways. Just be a bear.
Yeah.
Go get the honey. You're a bear.
I don't remember if Everybody is John was a 1-page. I think it was. And that one's like a competitive role-playing game where like everybody is playing the voices in the head of one main character.
Okay.
And
this is just being John Malkovich, the RPG?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
And you can take control by spending the points that you use to win the game. And every time the character indulges in the vice that you represent, you get points.
Okay.
And so the point of the game is to try and get your collective character, to indulge in the specific vices that you represent in a narratively cohesive way before the end of 2 hours when the character just fucking dies.
Okay. And
it's like, it's not a death that has to make sense. It isn't a death that has to be like narratively intriguing. It's like a car hit him or a meteor fell out of the fucking sky.
60 minutes have expired. John has an aneurysm.
Yes. And then whoever has the most points wins.
Oh, okay.
And so, like I said, it's one of the very few competitive RPGs I've ever seen.
Yeah.
You can actually like.
I like the idea of a competitive RPG.
Yeah.
I can out-improv somebody.
Well, for that, if you want to out-improv somebody, Fiasco's your game.
Except this Fiasco reads as very goofy to me. Is that wrong?
No.
Okay.
I mean, it's a fair reading of the game. It's just that I have never read it as goofy.
Really?
Every time I've played it, every time I have played that game, it has been like funeral serious.
Oh.
Like I played a one-shot of Fiasco at Gen Con.
Yeah.
And it was just like a drop-in game.
Yeah.
And my character in that was a single widower father whose daughter was getting in with a much older criminal man. And I was going to fucking deal with that.
Hey, that sounds depressing.
It was, but it was also incredibly engaging and a lot of fun.
All right.
Let me see if I can find some one-page RPGs here. Sorry for all the clickety-clacking.
Click, click, clack, clack. I was going to say,
clickety-clack.
While you look that up, I mean, I did a fair amount of research before I did my one-shot, and I looked at some other options out there. I found one that was, because I really wanted to do some sort of heist.
Right.
And I found one that seemed like almost too complicated, but it did have a fun little twist of there's going to be lots of guards. They're going to keep coming. Right. But if you make it into the... So I thought some of the traps and stuff in the basement were just like unfair. But if you manage to get down there and find like the dragon's horde you were after, you got some ridiculously overpowered weapons to help you fight your way back out. Like make it to safety. So like by way of example, a scythe that had reach that dealt necrotic damage, like 4d6 necrotic, but you also regained 4d6, and then
4d6.
Yeah.
What level is this?
This is a level 5 one shot.
Oh, okay. I was thinking level 1, and I was like, Jesus Christ. No.
But also, you regain half the damage it does as health.
Oh, just give them a shotgun. Jesus.
Oh, they did. It's called a Gatling crossbow.
No.
It does 1d10 piercing, but fires 5 times every time you attack.
Okay.
Stuff like this.
Man. I need to go on a slight tangent.
Okay.
And that slight tangent, it's not, well, is it slight? I don't know. I hate 5th edition's treasure rules. Oh my god.
Oh, yeah. They're so bad.
They are the worst. The fact, like, my players surprised me yesterday, day before, Monday, with wanting to go on a shopping trip.
Uh-huh.
How much gold does a potion cost, Josh?
I don't know. It's whatever I decide it's going to cost.
In Eberron, where there is a guy whose literal job is to brew potions all day, every day, there isn't a standard cost for potions. I have a rarity, and I get to try and make it up, and I get to negotiate and haggle with my players about the cost of a goddamn potion.
You know what would make that even better, though?
What's that?
Is if you had to do that for every single item that exists in the game, because even something as simple as a hand axe, which everyone should have, doesn't have a price.
Hand axes have prices.
Well, whatever. You get what I'm saying.
Yeah, a magical hand axe. A +1 hand axe does not.
Oh, from the +1 hand axe store in Eberron, right? With no price tags attached to any of the things he makes for his job, his actual job in a functioning economy with a fiat currency that needs to have prices in order for exchanges to happen?
Yes.
Yeah.
That store.
Yeah, that store.
That store. And fuck that guy for not putting prices on any of his shit.
Yeah, maybe you can just trade him a gently used goat or something. I don't know what it's going to take in that city. I don't know what they consider rare.
So I actually went and found a spreadsheet that some other person had made that did a bunch of math for me.
Okay.
And then I sent that link to my players and said, if you want to shop, I am going to trust you to buy things that are within your price range because we're all fucking adults here. And if it is a weird thing, run it by me.
Yep.
Like, they don't have enough money to buy super crazy expensive shit. I think the cleric had to borrow gold from the wizard to be able to afford a +1 weapon.
Which I think is fine.
Yeah.
Like, there's trading in economies, but, like, the fact that we had to go to a third-party source to find it is, to say the least, concerning.
Yeah, shout out to the guy who made the spreadsheet with the item prices. You're my favorite person on the internet right now.
And you know what's funny, though? It probably wasn't all that hard for him to do, because 4th edition had prices!
Yep.
Yeah.
Except that, like, 4th edition was balanced so completely differently from 5th.
I get that. They were necessary purchases. Like, you just had to, like, have a way to give people items. But, like, also, why are you taking away the ability for people to just acquire items easily?
Well, because if your random potion of healing doesn't have a story behind it, then why do you even have that item?
Anyways, I chugged it in 3 seconds, and now I'm back in the fight. Oh, what happened to that potion? I threw it across the room, and it shattered on the cobblestones.
That's one of my favorite mechanics of Baldur's Gate 3. Throwing potions at people.
Just hawking potions? Yeah.
Yeah. I just remembered one of my favorite one-shot one-page RPGs, and it is 3 octopuses in a trench coat.
Yep, I'm on board.
Yep. Each player plays 1 octopus, and you are 3 octopuses trying to escape the research facility that you live in. You have found a trench coat. Go.
Perfect.
And you stack up on top of each other, so you have to choose whether you're going to be the bottom, the middle, or the top octopus.
Right. That sounds great. Actually, it reminds me of, I'll send you a clip later, but it's a little sketch called 2 trench coats inside of a kid.
Oh,
no. But, like, I like weird ideas for one-shots. Even, like, so there's one that I want to run, I found, called the Havarti Job.
Okay.
And it is 5th edition rules, except you're a bunch of mice trying to steal cheese from a nobleman's party.
Okay.
And you get a big map of the house, and someone's done some scouting for you, so you know, like, which windows are open or closed. You know which rooms have molding accessible for you to run across if you need to. And then, you get to, like, take some time ahead of time. There's pre-gen characters with a few weird, unique mouse rules that don't really invalidate, like, the game or anything like that, but they definitely will help you do mouse-like behavior, like falling. Like,
what was the what was the species that they adjusted for Dimension 20 for Burrow's End? Do you remember? It was like a rabbit character, like a humanoid rabbit that they adjusted and turned that into bestowed characters.
I couldn't tell you.
Yeah,
but
I mean, like there are rules that would absolutely make sense for like converting to being mice.
Well, yeah, they're just like, okay, well, mice take half damage from falling, like all the time, forever, right? Stuff like that. But I think what was most interesting about it is that they really encouraged you to rethink perspective in D&D. Like, you're a mouse, and the cheese is on top of a 3-foot high table. How are you going to get there, you know?
Like, all of the noblemen are going to be giants.
Yeah.
So, like, you have to avoid, like, somebody shifting their weight could kill you.
Yeah. Well, like, even in the, like, random dangers table, there's like, oh, this surface has been damaged by termites. You might fall through. Yeah, like, random events like, in a daze, a partygoer falls to the floor unconscious. Like, you're going to have to worry about that. Yeah,
that's catastrophic. That reminds me, like, Mouseguard doesn't have any interactions with humans. Like, there's no humans in the book.
Yeah, it's very in-universe.
Well, I mean, the universe is the human world.
Oh, okay.
There is some evidence that humans do exist in the world somewhere. It's just that the Mouseguard territories are so far removed from anything human that they've never come into contact with, like, humans or human technology or any of that.
Okay.
But, like, the scale thing is a big deal in Mouseguard.
Yeah.
To the point where, like, if it is bigger than a weasel, it is too big for you to fight.
Yeah, it's a big problem.
Yeah, it's something that you are either going to have to, like, rally an army against and go to war, or you're going to have to figure out a scientific answer to this thing.
Yeah, I will say that this adventure I found here does have, like, the cat and the dog as, like, things you might have to deal with, but, like, they are doable.
Right. In Mouseguard, you couldn't fight a cat. A cat would just kill you.
Yeah.
You would have to find, like... You'd have to send mice to the moon.
There's, like, you've got these little guys that have, like, 12, 13 health. I guess, in theory, yeah, a dog or a cat could just, like, kill you if it rolls well. Which seems fair.
Yeah, like, even if you have medieval level technology on your mouse...
Yeah,
like the length of a sword that would fit in a mouse's hand would not be long enough to get through the fur of a cat.
Yeah, like, you've got toothpicks and needle tips here. Like, that's not...
Yeah. So, no, I really liked the scaling stuff that they did in Mouseguard. And that game also makes for really great one-shots. I do like the idea of playing, like, D&D 5e, going on an adventure to steal the cheese, though. Yeah,
for sure. I'm curious to run it. I don't know if I can talk anyone else into it, but I'm going to try.
I'm just looking at, like, a giant list of one-page RPGs right now, and one of them is called Stepdads, where each player becomes another player's stepdad.
Oh, no.
I could see that being a lot of fun. I have no idea what the mechanics of that look like because I've never played it. But there's, like, a Tony Hawk Pro Skater tabletop RPG that's one page.
What else did I download? I got one called the Ravnica Airship Heist, where it's just Ocean's 11 stealing a ship.
My players are going to have to do that in a few weeks.
Yeah, there's the workshop you sneak into. You steal these, like, boats, and then there's an aerial fight, and then there's a crash.
Right. I didn't tell you why we need to go on one-shots for the next little bit. Actually, I don't think I even said that we're doing one-shots for the next little bit. Well,
you said you're doing 1 to 3 shots, which made me concerned you didn't understand one-shots.
Okay, so we reached a point in this story that seemed like a pretty natural, like, arc end.
Uh-huh.
And my intention was for the players to get the artifact that somebody else had stolen because they stole the information about the artifact.
Okay.
Back into safe hands. So it's a weapon of mass destruction that is infernal in nature, and it like does weird body horror shit as soon as a cleric attunes to it.
Okay.
And so they are trying to figure out how to get this to a safe place, and that led them to the bank. And rather than like set up an appointment to talk to a banker to put this thing in a safe place, they just kind of showed up and broke into somebody's office.
Oh.
Yeah, so it kind of turned into like a fracas at the bank there, and then they did manage to talk their way out of that.
Yeah.
So like the bard on deck definitely helped with that, and like some of the rules that we've got for like I know a guy, just like having a resource, a person that you can lean on for stuff. Somebody's like, I know a guy and he's one of the guards at this bank.
Yeah.
And I'm going to use my flashback to go back a week and talk about how like this might happen. So like, watch out for us, that sort of thing. So like they did manage to get through all of that, but then they started arguing about what they need to do with this artifact.
Yep.
And the options were to leave it here in the bank, but the cleric on the team feels that that is not safe enough for his liking. They could try and find a way to destroy it by throwing it in Mount Doom volcano, or they could go to space.
So you're going to space?
We're fucking going to space.
Yeah.
We're getting Spelljammer up in this biz, and we're going to space. And like, it was originally said as a joke, right? Like the character who is like the big like alien conspiracist on the team was like, well, let's just take it to space and throw it in the sun, or like shoot it into space. And one of the other players was like, there's no way that you could get it into space. And then me, being the giant fucking dummy that I am, I went, well, I mean, you could get it into space.
If there's one thing I've learned about Dungeons and Dragons, it's that you cannot make a joke
about a thing that you absolutely cannot do, because there is a way that you could possibly do it.
There's always a way.
There is always a way. So yeah, as soon as it became like, wow, we could go, it was actually kind of neat because the party, we're at 7 people now.
That is a big party.
I've played bigger. But it's split in 3. So like 2 of them wanted to drop it at the bank, 2 of them wanted to drop it in Mount Doom, and 2 of them wanted to go to space, which left the cleric, who was like holding out dropping it in the bank, as like the final say in the matter. And he decided space. So we're gonna do some Spelljammer. But in the meantime, because I don't know anything about Spelljammer in 5th edition and need to do a bunch of research, we are going to take a few weeks and just do one-offs and or a 3-off, which is not a one-off. Yeah, it's not a one-shot. It's a 3-shot for like a game that is more complicated than you could fit into a one-shot.
Right. You're just saying you need time to vamp, basically.
I need time to vamp.
And vamp for time.
And I need to read a lot.
Yeah.
Because like my last experiences with Spelljammer were in the late 1990s.
There's some differences, I'll tell you that.
I've heard. I mean, the weird hippopotamus people are still there. And you still got the Githyanki and the Githzerai.
Yeah, those guys have gotten too much attention as of late, personally.
One of the interesting things about Baldur's Gate 3 for me is that they figured out how to make Mind Flayers and Githyanki something that you're dealing with from level 1.
Yeah, but also in kind of a boring way. Like,
a little bit.
Yeah.
It's really strange to have like epic tier adventure stuff.
Yeah.
Happening at like the heroic tier.
Right. You know, if you still believe in those tiers.
I do.
I
really,
know.
really
I
believe in
know.
those tiers.
It was, again, another great idea that...
And,
whatever.
Yeah, people are still using it. But yeah, though, I've been playing entirely too much Baldur's Gate 3.
That's fair.
And so I definitely don't want to be dealing with the Githyanki. What a weird species to try and shoehorn into a campaign.
Yeah.
See, because like traditionally, I only ever use them as pirates.
Well, yeah, and that would almost kind of make sense in that setting, but...
Yeah, like you had the Mind Flayer Githyanki divide was a thing that would happen a lot in the background. You had your Githzerai pirates running around just stealing shit and fighting with the Githyanki sometimes, and then you just like tried to avoid everybody while getting to Krynn.
Yeah.
Which is the first world that they said they want to go to, and I actually shot it down, Josh.
Oh, no. Chris, you said no? What happened to yes and?
No, yes and is great. I'm not going to the most standard D&D campaign world for our space-faring Star Trek arc.
Oh.
I mean, we might... actually, now that I'm thinking about it, they could go to Krynn as like one of those weird idyllic fantasy worlds that like Picard spends entirely too much time waxing philosophical about.
Yeah. Do that.
Yeah. They can go to Krynn and just nothing happens. It's all
Space France or whatever.
Yeah, it's an allegory for, I don't know, relationships are hard.
Yeah. Tell that to Picard, huh?
Yeah. Riker. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I got distracted for a second because we were talking about different one-shots, and I pulled one up just to, like, because I still had a couple, like, I was researching, whatever. I pulled one up, and I just glanced, because it had bolded text, a phrase that says, "A brown bear is in the outhouse taking care of business."
He is, yes.
Yeah. No explanation necessary.
No. Why even play the game? We've already got it sorted.
But yeah, like, I was gonna. Maybe it's not important now. We've gone over a couple of ideas for.
Well, while you're thinking,
uses of. Go ahead.
While you're thinking, there's a type of one shot that I really like to run. That I don't know if it gets as much attention as it probably should, and that's the victim game.
Right.
Where you play a group of perfectly normal people.
Uh-huh.
And the bad guy is one normal level 5 monster.
Oh, okay. And you're just dudes?
And you're just dudes. You're like, in D&D, you would be like some farmers in a village. If you're playing something more modern, then you would be like 5 teenagers who have gone camping. And now there's a werewolf.
Right.
Right, and like really digging into the effective horror of one particularly powerful monster and like kind of recontextualizing a little bit the power fantasy that comes from a lot of role-playing games where it's just like, yeah, it's just one werewolf. That's not a big deal. And then it turns out that one werewolf, in fact, is a giant fucking deal.
Yeah, like it could actually like end a town.
Yeah, 100%. Or like a vampire. You get like one Strahd.
Yeah.
And your town is done. Except that he likes your town, so he's babysitting it.
It's just one vampire, Christopher.
It's just one vampire. And he's
what could it cost?
Hold your cleric
$10?
by the head and throw him off the top of a building because that's how Strahd do.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, victim games are a lot of fun. I've played a few of them. Actually, the game system that I have played that the most in is, I feel like I'm talking about this a lot, Palladium.
Oh, you and your Palladium. Go away.
Yeah. There was a modern Palladium book called Beyond the Supernatural that was their answer to things like Vampire. And the victim game that I was introduced to was just in the back of the book.
Oh, okay.
It was just like a little 3-page write-up on like how to play normal people in a role-playing game with one normal monster.
I see.
And I have used that very effectively when introducing people to role-playing games. Plus, it gives you a great excuse to spend the night just killing your players.
Yeah. You're like, it's not me. It's this super lethal vampire.
Yeah. Which brings me to my ultimate favorite one-shot game, Kobolds Ate My Baby.
Oh, right.
It is
Australian.
so dumb.
Yes.
It is so dumb. And it's meant to be dumb, and it's very fast, and you can build a character in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And then your character's going to die 30 seconds after that. And it is...
I was going to say, it's very dumb, but it's also an absolute hoot.
Oh, it is. Yeah. 100%. Like, it's just absolutely so ridiculous. Not quite like you're a bear going on a heist.
Right.
Ridiculous, but like you...
But not
a bunch
that
of
far.
kobolds. No, not that far. You're a bunch of kobolds who have been tasked with stealing a baby so that King Torg can eat a baby. And that's the game.
The whole game.
That's the whole game. You go and get a baby.
Right.
And then every time anybody does anything wrong, you roll on the kobold horrible nasty death table, and your kobold dies a horrible nasty death, and then you roll a new kobold.
That almost sounds like that version of the 40K one where you're all Imperial Guardsmen and you're just like, well, like I'm one of an untold nameless billions of people, so
you don't even have to write and like make up a new character sheet. You just like change the name on the top of it.
Yeah, exactly. Welcome back to the fight, Guardsman.
Bruce Jr.
Yeah.
Son of Bruce.
And now you know why Iceland is full of Magnus von Magnusson. Or whatever.
Yep. What other games do you like? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Because we talked about the idea of like, well, what usefulness does a one-shot have? What am I using them for currently? What are you using them for? But someone, I won't say who, had floated I guess there's I don't want to call it a setting, but it's this idea that like there's a campaign you can run that is essentially nothing but strung together one-shots where you're in the same tavern all the time, and every new quest you go on, you just hop down the well and you wind up in your new one-shot area. How do you feel about that? I kind of hate the idea of such disconnected content, because that to me feels very like video gamey, but yeah, I was curious of your thoughts.
It's funny because the first thing I thought of was The Witcher.
Okay.
Right, where like you have your one guy or your team of guys that are just going around doing normal guy things. And then some random supernatural shit happens that you handle, and then you go back to doing normal guy things.
Yeah.
Right, so that seems to kind of come from that tradition, like kind of the sword and sorcery, Fafhrd and the Grey Mouse, or Elric of Melnibone type tradition of like you have your status quo and you always return to your status quo.
Yeah.
So I think there's a place for that, and I think that there's something you could do that would be interesting there.
Okay.
I don't know if it would necessarily be something I would want to do for a long campaign, but it's definitely something that I could see myself doing for like one-shots between arcs.
Okay.
Right, so like you always come back to those one-shots with the same characters.
Okay.
And if you wanted to, you could even have it be like a crew of people that are in the world that your main campaign is happening in, and then you're just doing like one-shots within that same world, and you get like some of the shadows of what your characters are doing in the main quest.
Yeah.
But you don't have to, and I feel like that would probably pull away a bit from the idea of just doing like those self-contained things. There's actually some games that I've played that are designed around that idea.
Okay.
Monster of the Week is just Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Every week there's a new monster, and your one-shot session is just dealing with that monster.
Okay. Yeah.
And then like you have continuity in much the same way that those shows do, where like you have the overarching plots that are happening, but then you also have like these smaller self-contained one-shots.
Yeah.
So I think there's room for it. I just it's not my preferred mode for one-shots. Like for me, my preferred way to run a one-shot, my preferred reason to run a one-shot is because I have something specific that I want to do with a game, or something specific that I want to say with a game, that can't really be folded into a whole campaign, or doesn't necessarily deserve a whole campaign.
Gotcha.
Right? It's just it's got to be kind of punchy.
It's interesting you say that, because like the reason I use one-shots is there's really only two reasons. One, it's introductory, and I'm teaching people how to play Dungeons and Dragons. And two, it's like a break from the campaign, like a comic relief interlude, where we're just going to go to something goofy that you don't have to be like invested in, and you can like relax this week and just play a game and have fun.
Beer and pretzels gaming.
Yeah, except yeah.
You don't like beer, or you don't like pretzels?
I don't like beer and pretzels gaming.
Oh, okay. And we're going to have to stop the episode before we get to that point so that we don't piss off 30 bazillion people. That's how we're going to get famous, Josh, is by saying you don't like beer and pretzels gaming.
I told you from day one I am going to be a magnet for controversy over dumb opinions. Specific to board gaming, I think it's fine with there's people have to have fun. Mm-hmm. I can understand that.
For me, like I get into one shots either because I have something specific that I want to say or do with the game.
Yeah.
Conventions. I will often sit in on a one shot for a convention game because like it's an opportunity for me to play with people I've never played with before. And it's an opportunity for me to experience a game style that I've never played before.
Okay, yeah.
So I'll usually sign up for like first timer sessions for all sorts of stuff at Gen Con.
Yeah.
Or like I will use them for introductions, but I'm actually more likely to introduce people to D&D with a campaign.
Oh, really?
Almost always. Because like I've found that people are more likely to hold on to the hobby if they become invested in the game.
Okay.
It takes a little while for them to develop that investment in their character, but once you have that experience, once you're able to look back and be like, that was my first character. And
right.
they have a very special place in my heart because I played with them for like a year and a half, and we made it all the way from like level 5 through to like level 17. And it was like a cohesive thing, and I've got all these stories that I could tell from that. Once you have that, you have that person forever. They're going to be a role-playing gamer until the day they die. But missing that, like not having those cohesive stories and not being able to like stretch out and have those ideas, and like not having the freedom, I guess, to be able to just like sit back a bit and not have a spotlight.
Yeah.
Contributes to a lot of people like skipping off the hobby, in my experience. So like the organized play events that we did, I was really happy that they were doing those in a campaign style.
Yeah.
And I did find that like once players started coming to those on the regular, and we were like maintaining those cohesive stories, and people started telling stories about what had happened in the previous sessions to anybody who happened to come in and like sit in on the games and stuff, we kept those people. They came in and bought games not too terribly long after that.
Interesting. Because I've found that like when you talk about like getting buy-in and stuff like that, like that's great if the person, like I deal with a lot of first timers who have like literally no experience with any sort of role-playing thing. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. And one of the most important things I find is because first of all, I rarely run a solo thing for like just new players, right? I'll have like one or two experienced players at the table to sort of like help the whole process along. And
okay, when you said solo, I thought you meant like just a one-on-one game, and I think I have ran a grand total of like 3 of those in my life, and I find them incredibly uncomfortable.
I have never run one myself. I've seen them in action, and I refuse to partake in that.
It's like the most awkward date.
It is awful to watch happen. I can't imagine being in that situation. Never mind. There's one couple of guys that used to come and play nothing but that, and it was the strangest thing I've ever seen in my life. But yeah, long story. Anyways, no, because I found that like there's obviously a lot of barriers to your first role playing like experience, and the thing that I found helpful was to sort of immediately eliminate the mechanical aspect of it, if that makes sense.
Always.
Like, and by that I mean like, I'm going to do this one shot so that you can see how the game flows, and then that will just be like your intro game of like, now you know the basics of how to play Magic the Gathering or whatever, right? And then maybe we'll do like a 3-shot as like, do you actually want to play D&D? Does this seem fun to you? Now that you know how it works mechanically, you can get out of your own head and think about like the actual game, you know?
Did I ever show you my like crack dealer Magic the Gathering intro?
No, I try not to do crack.
No, it's I'm just borrowing their techniques. I would play a pack war.
Okay.
With somebody.
Okay.
And it would just be like 2 packs.
Yeah.
And they would get to keep those packs.
Right.
Every time.
Okay.
And so if I was playing with somebody who had never played Magic before, usually I would only do this for the kids. But if a kid had come in and they'd never played a game of Magic before, we would just shuffle up a couple of packs of cards, play a couple of games out of them, and then they would get to keep those cards. And so now they had the start of a collection.
Oh, right. So I don't know if you were out of hobbying when this happened, but they actually made that into a real product.
No.
Yep. They are called...
The fun is that it wasn't.
They are called Jumpstart Packs, and the idea is they are at a discounted rate. They have a smaller pool of cards, but they include land, and then you just buy 2 packs, which will cost you about $8, shuffle them together, and you can play a game against another person.
Thanks, wizards. I hate it.
It's exactly what you just said,
yes.
But, you know, better.
Quote unquote. No, half of the joy of a pack war is that you have no idea what the hell you're going to be pulling from the
yeah, and that's the same thing with Jumpstart. You don't know what you're going to be pulling. It's like the like super ultra duper mythics are not in there, but there's like random cards and random lands, and just shuffle them together, and now you've got a deck.
All right.
And go at it, you little burgeoning crack addict.
I'm glad that it caught on, I guess, but still.
Yeah, I know. I'm sure your name is in the liner notes somewhere.
I sincerely doubt it. They haven't given me credit for any of the things that I obviously invented and were not parallel design.
No, despite the constant letters?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's
Mark
rude.
Rosewater hasn't replied to me even once.
It's a jerk. He's taking credit that is not deserved. You're clearly the brains behind the operation.
Good.
Never mind his 30 years of experience. That's all you.
Oh, man. No, I think that for, like, getting new people into the hobby.
Yeah.
For any hobby, the most important thing to establish right off the bat is fun.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of different ways that you can do that.
Yeah.
But almost none of them are mechanical. Because, like, we forget, I think, just how incredibly complex these games are.
Right.
And how intimidating they can be when you're looking at literal textbooks full of rules.
Yeah.
And if you can simplify that down to a game of cops and robbers with rules and dice.
Yeah.
Right. And they're not even a lot of rules. It's just like, I will tell you which shiny math rock you need to roll when you need to roll it. And I will point out on your sheet what you need to add to that. And we're going to have fun.
Yeah.
We're just going to focus on the story. We're just going to focus on having a good time. We're just going to be kind of goofy.
Yeah.
And then hopefully there's enough investment there that you come back the next time.
Yeah, and I think you and I sort of are parallel thinking in the same direction. Like, getting someone into D&D is not a one-night affair. I think we just go about it in different ways. But yeah, it's definitely, it's going to take a level of investment that can't be done with just, hey, here's a sheet of paper. Good luck. Figure it out yourself.
We could probably do a whole episode about that, to be honest.
Yeah, we will. One day we will.
We're going to run out of ideas again, and we're just going to do another one of these where we shoot the shit about a topic. It's going to be how to get noobs to come and play your shiny math rock game.
How to pwn noobs at pretend adventures.
Hey, thanks for making it all the way through this episode of No Plot Only Lore. If you're looking for more, you can always find us at noplotonlylore.com and on all the very best podcast platforms. If you like what you heard today, please share, rate, and review the show to feed my never-ending need for attention and validation.